We listened to you describe a lot of events in your life, including when you met your first wife, Stacy, and then history from there on. Various discussions of your time in the Army and the time you spent working in the private sector. During your time working in the private sector, did you work for GTE Wireless for a time period?
Yes.
What did you do for GTE Wireless?
I was a switch manager and a systems technician.
Maintaining cellular networks?
Maintaining the towers and the equipment at the base of the tower.
Okay. That was in the private sector, GTE Wireless, that you worked
Yes.
for? That was not in the military?
Correct.
And then you also worked for WorkNet.com in the private sector?
Yes.
What is WorkNet.com?
That was a internet service for businesses.
You stated that you met your first wife, Stacy.
Only wife.
In 1989 or 91, did you say?
I didn't say, but I think it was the summer of '89 at Fort Lewis.
In ROTC?
Yes.
When did you and Stacy get married?
I think it was May 25th, 1991.
And how did that marriage work out?
Well, we got divorced in spring of 2004.
But during the time you were married to Stacy, you had there was conflicts in the marriage, and you had problems with Stacy, didn't you?
We had some issues, yeah. That's why we eventually ended up getting divorced.
In fact, starting early on in the marriage. In fact, starting not long after you married. Problems.
Yeah, I was in Fort Ord, California, and she flew out a month after. That's when our marriage kind of really started.
To deteriorate.
Well, it was a big adjustment for both of us.
But you stated, or you wanted to get a divorce from Stacy.
Actually, she asked me for a divorce.
When was that?
My son's birthday in 2004, March 19th.
But you and Stacy had been having problems long before that, correct?
Correct.
And Judge, we
And
would
then-
object for relevance.
Overruled.
In March 2004?
I believe so, yeah.
And when did you meet Joan Harmon?
I think it was May or sometime like that in 2004, a couple months maybe. It's been a long time.
You met Joan Harmon online?
She contacted me online, yes.
Online, and were you in the process of divorcing Stacy, or were you already divorced from Stacy?
I think our divorce was technically done on March 21st of 2004, if I'm not mistaken. I don't recall.
And so you started dating Joan?
We started like emailing, texting.
When did you and Joan move in together?
We moved to Fort Rucker in very end of 2004. think.
Well, at Fort Rucker, you were attending the Black Hawk helicopter course?
I had attended the Black Hawk course. When I went there with Joan, I was going through the captain's career course.
Well, in March of 2004, were you at Fort Rucker attending the Black Hawk helicopter course?
Yeah, I came home for my son's birthday that weekend, I believe.
And you were still married to Stacy at that time?
Yes.
And is that when you learned that Stacy wanted a divorce?
She told me that night.
So that was the end of March 2004, and you met Joan. That's when she told you, the end of March, and you met Joan in June of 2004, online.
Something like that, yeah.
So you moved in with Joan, and was Stacy happy about that?
Well, she was engaged that spring or summer, I believe, and got married, I think that summer of 2004. And then Joan and I married December 7th of 2004, so she was already married.
Well, all of that happened rather quickly. You learned that she wanted a divorce in March, and then in June 2004, you were already moved in with Joan.
No,
And Stacy was remarried by the end of.
I said I didn't move in with her in June. I said that's when we started dating and everything. When we moved in together was after we got married.
You continue to have contact with Stacy because of your children. How many children you have with her?
We have 3 together.
And so after you moved in with Joan and were living with Joan, you continue to have contact with Stacy due to your child support obligations and so forth, correct?
Correct.
And was there some problems that arose with Stacy regarding your child support?
I remember when I went to Iraq the first time, they were taking out double my child support payments for like 4 months or something.
And so, in fact, you filed a complaint with the state of Tennessee about Stacy with your regard to the child support?
Yeah, because they were double billing me basically.
Who would object to this exhibit under it's irrelevant, Judge?
Overruled.
So I'm handing you what's marked Commonwealth Exhibit 233. Is this a letter you wrote to the State of Tennessee Department of Human Services Child Support Division?
After, so yeah.
That is the letter you wrote.
I don't remember it, to be honest, but
And-
it looks like I did.
That is your signature on the letter, correct? That you just looked at and read.
Yeah, I don't sign that way anymore, but
And you don't sign this way anymore?
anymore. No.
Okay. So in the letter that you just read, you complain about Stacy, stating she continues to call, email, and mail official documents to me. Additionally, she uses my children to convey threats about calling my supervisor. And continue on to complain to the Department of Human Services about Stacy,
Okay.
right? So you didn't hesitate to take official action against your first wife, complaining that she was harassing you and so forth about this child support.
Yeah, I don't really remember, to be honest. Like I said,
You don't remember?
I remember we had issues, but I don't remember specifics. We get along fine now.
When did you train to be a ranger?
That was, I think it was November of 90 to March of 91. I went to the Army Ranger Leadership course.
And what does that training involve?
It's a high-stress environment for evaluating leadership skills in different environments, city, mountains, jungle, and desert. When I went through, it was 4 phases.
And how do people qualify to get into the ranger training?
They asked for volunteers when I was at OBC, Officer Basic Course, and myself and 2 of my buddies volunteered to be assessed.
So you learn how to negotiate mountain terrain, swamp terrain, and what else?
Desert. There's 4 phases back then.
How long does it last?
Back then, I don't remember, this 3 to 4 months, I believe. Now it's shorter.
And when did you get, you were living with Joan and presumably married to Joan beginning in 2004.
I was married to Joan December 7th, 2004, or thought I was.
And were you active Army at that time?
No.
When did you become active Army?
After I finished the Captain's Career Course in 05, I submitted a requested return to active duty.
And did you go to Rhode Island?
No, I went that late summer, fall, I can't remember. I received orders saying you were back on active duty, and they gave me orders to go to Fort Rucker again.
So you went to Fort Rucker with Joan.
Yes, we went back.
When is the first date that you became active Army?
The very first day was 10 May 1990.
What is the second date then?
That would have been August or September, I believe, of 2005.
So from 1990, how long did you serve?
Till December 1993.
And from 93 to 2005, what were you doing as
I was
far as
in the
active Army?
I was in the National Guard.
That entire time?
Yes.
All right. So you married Joan at the end of 2004. At that time, shortly thereafter, went to active Army. Where did you serve? Where did you live during the time you were married to Joan while being in active Army?
Well, Fort Rucker, and then in Bad Windsheim, Germany, and then later on in Newport, Rhode Island.
And were you overseas at any point during your marriage to Joan?
Most of the time.
Where was that?
Bad Windsheim, Germany.
And were you in a good relationship at that time? In Rhode Island, in Germany, at Fort Rucker?
Yes.
You and Joan had a good relationship?
For the most part, yeah, that's pretty good. We were apart a lot, but
Then when did you move to Pembroke?
I think it was July or August of 2011.
Still with Joan?
Yes.
Prior to moving to Pembroke, where had you and Joan been living?
Bad Windsheim, Germany, and Newport, Rhode Island.
Just prior to you coming to Pembroke, where had you and Joan been living?
Newport, Rhode Island.
So your assignment at Fort Campbell was what?
An assignment.
Why did you move to Pembroke in 2011?
Because I've been stationed at Fort Campbell. That's the house that we picked out.
What was your duty? What were your duties at Fort Campbell for the Army?
I was the deputy aviation for the G3 operations of the division headquarters.
So you moved into the house at 458 South Main, or did you live somewhere else first?
We lived in a pop-up camper in the backyard under the carport while we were initially getting the house fixed up.
In 2011.
Yes.
What month of 2011 did you move to Pembroke?
I think it was, like I said, July or August, maybe September. I can't remember exactly when the auction was and when we started living there.
And as you moved to 458 South Main, what was your relationship with Joan at that time?
When we moved there, it was still good.
I'm sorry, it was what?
Still good, pretty much.
So it was good in Rhode Island, it was good in Germany, and it was good when you moved to Pembroke.
Yeah, like so we'd spent a lot of time apart. Newport was our first time really together, like continuously, and then we moved to Pembroke.
How long were you in Germany when you were with Joan?
November 05 to May 2010.
5 years?
But I was in Iraq half of that, and the other, I was in training in the field, a good part of that as well.
And how long in Rhode Island?
1 year.
And you were there every day with Joan?
Every evening.
In Rhode Island?
Yes.
And your relationship was good?
It was pretty good.
Yeah. In 2012, you have testified that there was a complaint or call to the police in regard to domestic violence situation.
There was no violence, it's just a domestic disagreement.
And what was who called? You testified that you called or Joan called the police?
I called first, and then when she saw that I had called, she called 911.
What month was that?
That was September of 2012.
September 2012.
I believe so, yeah.
So Up to that point, you had a good relationship with Joan?
No, like I testified earlier, it started to deteriorate this summer of that year.
Well, you're going to need, this was September when the police were called.
Right.
So you're saying the summer of 2012 then?
Yeah, late spring, summer 12th, we started to have issues.
What started to happen?
Like I talked about before, I started to catch her in some lies of different changing stories that she told me before. Her getting like really controlling about everything.
She was getting controlling
Yes.
and you didn't like that?
I don't know anybody who would, but no, I didn't.
So in September 2012 is when the police came to your house and told you to leave the house that night.
They didn't tell me I had to. They suggested that we spend the night apart to kind of cool off, and I agreed to leave for the night.
And the next day you turned your guns in at the sheriff's office.
No, a deputy came out and informed my daughter and I that Joan had filed an EPO that morning, and I had to turn my guns over.
So you did turn your guns in to the sheriff's office.
To the deputy, I didn't go to the office.
And that was September 6th of 2012.
Yes.
And as we heard earlier from another witness, I believe Deputy Phillips, you did not receive those guns back until April 11th, 2013.
I don't remember the exact date. It's sometime after, yeah.
So it was a good 6-7 months that you did not have. That the guns were still at the sheriff's office.
It was a while, yeah.
And after that, September 5th, 2012, Joan moved out of the house at 458 South.
Yes. When we came back the 6th, she was gone, and then we never lived together after that.
I'm sorry, when you did what on the 6th?
When Mackenzie and I came back home on the 6th, she was gone, and we were never together again after that.
And where did Joan move?
I don't know.
You don't know where she moved?
I'm not exactly sure, no.
Did you see her after September 6th, 2012?
Yeah, I saw her around Pembroke for a while. But like I said, I didn't, we had a no contact order. I didn't try to interact with her or anything like that.
You knew that Calvin and Pamela Phillips had helped Joan move out, didn't you?
I heard about that, yeah.
You didn't, you heard about it? You didn't know that she had actually just gone right across the street?
I think my neighbor Billy told me
And
something
stayed
like
with them?
that. No, I was told she went to the shelter for a while, but I don't, like I said, I don't have any firsthand knowledge.
You don't have any firsthand knowledge that Cal and Pam Phillips helped her move her stuff out of the house that you all were living in?
Yes, that's a different question. Yeah, Billy called me that day when he watched them doing it.
And you watched what?
Billy watched them taking the stuff out of the house.
Who's Billy?
My neighbor that testified the other day.
Now you knew, as you stated, that you knew Cal and Pam Phillips.
Yes.
And in fact, you said that you had gone over to Cal's house to shoot in the backyard.
Yes, he offered his backyard.
And did you do that?
Yeah, several times.
So you were familiar with Calvin Phillips's backyard?
Kind of remember it, yeah. It's kind of long and narrow.
How many times did you go over there to practice shoot?
There's been almost 9, 10 years. Like, I don't remember exactly. It wasn't very many times.
You said that you knew Ed Donzero, Cal and Pam's neighbor.
Yep.
Did you visit Ed's house? Did you go in Ed's house?
Yeah, a couple times.
And you said he was a marvelous piano player.
Yep. He was a musician, yeah.
Did you hear him play piano?
Yeah, but not like, I think he did it a couple times for people, like some parties and stuff like that.
So you were at parties with Ed?
He had some gatherings at his house. I remember going over a couple times. I took Laura over there one time and introduced her.
At a gathering at Ed's house?
Yeah, he had some friends over or something like that.
So did you meet Ed's girlfriend?
Sally, I thought I met his daughter, which I thought was Sally maybe. I can't remember. It's been so long now.
So you don't know at the gathering at Ed's house whether you met his girlfriend or his daughter?
Somebody like that. I can't remember exactly who it was.
Okay. What car did you normally drive to work at Fort Campbell?
I rotated out between the two that I had, my Tacoma and my Infinity. But I got the Infinity much later.
What car did you normally drive to work in November 2015?
Like I said, I rotated them out
Rotated
between the two.
the Infinity and what other
The
vehicle?
truck.
The Toyota?
Tacoma.
That had the camouflage on it?
Yes.
What car did you drive most to work?
Like I said, I rotated them both. I don't really remember.
You don't remember which car, so you would just drive whatever happened to suit you for that day?
I would try to swap them out so they both got, usage. I don't like leaving vehicles to just sit.
So, when did you meet Laura Spencer? Joan moved out September 6th, you said. September 6, 2012. You don't know where she went.
Yep.
When did you meet Laura Spencer?
First met her 17 November 2012.
So, Joan moved out September 6th. You met Laura Spencer, and how did you meet her?
She contacted me online.
Online, the same way you met Joan.
Yep.
And that was November
Yep.
2012.
Yep.
And Laura Spencer was married at that time?
No, she was a widow at the time.
And who was her husband?
Richard Spencer.
And when did Richard Spencer pass away?
Don't know exactly. I never met the guy or
Well,
anything.
if I told you October 24th, 2012, you wouldn't have a reason to disagree?
Or agree, I don't know.
October 24th, 2012.
Yeah, I don't know.
And so you met her online November 2012.
Yes. I remember she telling me that they've been essentially separated for a couple of years.
When did Laura move in?
With me, it was, I believe, the summer of 2013.
And at that time, what was your relationship with Joan Harmon?
Didn't have one.
Had nothing at all.
Well, I was, trying to get legally separated, but we weren't legally married ever, so it was a little confusing.
Now, when did the problems start with you, with your command at Fort Campbell?
Well, there's a process you have to go through when you're going through like divorces and things like that, and certain counseling they have to do. It's mandatory. So, I mean, right away I had to go see the Lauren or Mackenzie and I went and saw my battalion commander, and he gave me the mandatory counselings about no contact, things like that.
This is after the EPO hearing had occurred and...
No, this is right after the EPO had been filed, I think. I called my supervisor and let him know, and then I went in to see the colonel.
So you said this was for counseling.
Yeah, it's mandatory that they have to do, yeah.
Now, when did you had applied, put together a packet for the British Advanced Command and Staff College, had you not?
Yes, I did, yeah.
And then you found out you were flagged.
Right.
And what does that mean, being flagged?
So it's something that this command does when you want to make sure you can't have any positive actions, like you can't get an award. If like soldiers, they think a soldier might get in trouble, they don't want to be embarrassed to give him an award or promote him, and then the next day he gets arrested or something. So it's kind of a standard procedure that the command can do, but there's a strict policy about how it's supposed to happen, and that didn't occur in this case.
So you were flagged, but you saying that the protocol for being flagged wasn't followed.
Correct.
And what do you mean by that, it wasn't followed?
I was never notified. I was supposed to be brought in, officially notified in writing, and that didn't happen. The reason I found out I was flagged is because the guy that coordinated that school, I called him and I was like, how's my packet? And he's like, well, you're flagged. And then I was like, no, I'm not. And he's like, yeah, you are. And then that kind of led to that thing.
And so what happened after that with your application for the British Advanced Command and Staff College?
So I didn't go anywhere because I was flagged. And then I think I had to go to the Inspector General's office to try and get an official notification or something like that.
And did you get that flag taken off and so you could go forward with your plan?
No, I think that's flag stayed in effect.
And what proceeded after that in regard to
That's a long time ago.
charges being brought?
Wasn't any charges like that. There was investigations. So I was subject to all kinds of investigations like I talked about earlier.
What kind of investigations?
Family advocacy program in the military, did a like mandatory counseling. The Civilian Child Protective Services did an investigation. So they came back
This is in regard to your relationship with Joan and her children.
Yes.
And that proceeded. The investigation.
Yeah, I got notified it was found unfounded in, I don't remember the exact date. I've got the memo.
When did the charges involving the laptop come about?
I wasn't much later. I believe that was in October, November of 2013 maybe.
And you learned that that was a result of Joan Harmon and Calvin Phillips turning in the laptop to the FBI.
No, I didn't find that out too much later. I was just informed that there was a laptop, and I had the background documentation out showing that it hadn't been an Army laptop since 2007, and it belonged to a unit in Maryland, which I have never been to, but I tried to provide that.
But that didn't stop the investigation from proceeding.
No.
When you told them that it was off, or it wasn't an Army laptop, is that what you told them?
I was able to find the background information, or the MPI itself did the background information. I can't remember.
You can't remember?
Not exactly, no.
But the charges proceeded.
Yes.
And in fact, at one point there was a discussion about an Article 32 hearing.
That was separate, but yes.
What was that about?
That's like I talked about earlier, that's a preliminary hearing where an officer is appointed as a sort of a judge, and he listens to both sides and then he makes a recommendation.
So it's a more along the lines in civilian world of a settlement type thing?
No.
Where you don't proceed?
It's a preliminary hearing where they decide if they're going to proceed or not, and he stated that he didn't think, I can't remember exactly what part of it, but he's like, it shouldn't go forward.
And in fact, General Stammer is the one that said it needed to go forward with a court-martial.
He wanted to go forward.
General Stammer did?
Mark Stammer, yes.
Okay. So you knew that Joan Harmon and Calvin Phillips, with the help of Calvin Phillips, had not only turned the laptop that was found in belongings that had been in your house, turned the laptop into the FBI, but also that Calvin Phillips had provided a photograph of Joan Harmon's son showing bruises and so forth.
I didn't really get the background on that for years, so I wasn't exactly sure what the deal was. I know Joan was obviously behind it.
But you didn't know Calvin Phillips was the one that turned over that information to the FBI?
Like I said,
in fact, to Captain Garrett?
I found out much later. It might have been at the prosecutorial misconduct hearing.
But you did nevertheless find out that Calvin is the reason the case, as Captain Garrett testified, Calvin Phillips was the case. Without Calvin Phillips, there wouldn't have been the charges.
According to Captain Garrett, not according to Calvin Phillips.
Okay. And in fact, you at some point, as you said, hired private investigators and who specifically went to interview Calvin Phillips.
Later on, yeah.
Now, this court-martial charges were instituted, and it had been set for trial at least 2 times prior to the December 1st, 2015 date, which is where it stood on November 18th.
Yeah, many times. There was many delays.
It had been scheduled for trial, and in fact, as you have heard all the testimony, Calvin Phillips had been subpoenaed each time that case was set for trial.
I believe so, yeah.
Now, you said that you were not familiar with Rosetown Road.
No, not really. Like I said, I didn't really go out that way that much.
In 2015, you had been living in Pembroke 4 years, correct?
Something like that.
Pembroke, a town of, I think we heard 700 people.
Yeah.
You saw on the Google Earth photo how small it is.
Yeah, small.
You saw how close Rosetown Road is to South Main in Pembroke.
I've seen the map.
And you heard that it's about 3 miles from South Main Street.
Okay.
But you didn't know you didn't know Rosetown Road existed?
I know there's roads out there. I'm not an area that I wanted to go. Like I was either going to Hobsonsville or I was going to Fort Campbell.
You stated that on that day,
Which day?
the November 18th, was the first night you were running the new kerosene heater.
I believe so.
So you had gotten a new heater when?
October or early November, I can't remember. I couldn't get the old one back together.
You can't remember when you got it.
Not exactly.
And so that's why you set the alarm.
Yeah, like I said, I usually check the heaters during the night, especially a new one wasn't used to. I wasn't sure how it was going to work.
And so you have to set those, so you have to check those heaters every night, that heater every night?
Like I said, it depends how hot you're running it and when you go to bed and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I usually did, yeah.
But that was the first night you were running.
Best I can remember.
Okay. And at that point, on November 18th, of course, you had had all your guns back since April of 2013. Where did you keep that Glock 45?
So I normally kept it in my truck, but that night, the 19th, I put it in my safe.
Well, I didn't ask you about the 19th, sir. I asked you about the 18th.
Okay, my truck.
In your truck. Where in your truck?
In the back, I had like an extra bonus seat area. I put it in the back there.
In the back of the truck, in the pickup, or in the back seat?
In the cab, in the extra cab compartment in the back. It's an extra cab.
Is that the only gun you kept in the truck?
No, sometimes I'd have some 22s or maybe my 38. 22 was my gun that I would shoot the most just because it was cheapest.
Which 22?
Any of them.
Okay, well, as we heard, you had 3 22s. You had 2 22 handguns, or long rifle pistols,
Yeah.
and then you had a 22 rifle.
And then I had another rifle that my dad gave me.
Well, I asked you about the 22. So which 22 did you keep in the truck?
It just depended what I wanted to use, what I wanted to shoot with.
Okay. So on November 18th, as of the morning of November 18th, the court-martial trial was scheduled to begin December 1st.
I believe so, yep.
And on that morning of November 18th, Laura Spencer left very early to go to work,
Right, yep.
even prior to 7 a.m. And then her children were gone by about 20 after 7 to go to school.
About right, yeah.
So no one was there but you
Correct.
after they left.
True.
And as we saw on your surveillance camera, you left to go to work at Fort Campbell at 11 minutes after 9.
Okay.
So everyone had left by 7:20 or 7:22 but you. And so you were there from 7:22 to 11 minutes after 9 by yourself.
Yes.
And you came home that day at about 4:15, as you saw on the surveillance.
Yeah, I think the video showed something like that, yeah.
Now, did you notice being in such close proximity to the Phillips house. And I think you stated that you knew when Ed Donzero would be home and when he would be in Bowling Green, or you stated that he was gone
Yeah, he
quite a bit.
had a fairly regular schedule.
So what was Pamela Phillips' schedule?
I don't know exactly. I mean, she worked a lot.
And in fact, her schedule was leave early and come home late.
Best I could tell, yeah.
So she would normally come home between 6 and 7 p.m. You would have been home before that, right?
I guess, yeah.
Now, on this day, on the 18th, you got home at 4:15. And Laura Spencer's children, as you saw on the surveillance, did come home, but then left again to go to church.
Right.
So they were gone by, I think that surveillance showed about 5:20 possibly, they left.
Okay.
What were you doing?
The night of the 18th?
What were you doing after you got home at 4:14 and Laura's children had left at about 5:20 to go to church? What were you doing then?
I was with Laura.
Doing what?
I don't remember. We did a bunch of different things.
I'm sorry?
We did a bunch of things. Probably, like I said, probably took a shower and hung out, maybe watched some TV.
Did you notice anything going on across the street?
No.
You didn't see a car come at 6 p.m. up to the Phillips house?
No.
Did you see a car come back at 7 p.m. and go and females go up to the Phillips house?
No.
Did you see Pam Phillips come home that day?
No.
And yet you knew that you were aware of her schedule. But
No, I mean, I had an idea from seeing her, like, walking the dogs and stuff about when she left in the morning and things like that.
Did you see Pam Phillips' car that night or that afternoon, late afternoon, after you came home? Did you see Pam Phillips' car parked in her front yard driveway?
don't
Shared
remember.
driveway?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
No.
What kind of car did Pam Phillips drive?
It was, they talked about it earlier, but all I remember was, like, it was a sand color, like a gold or sand color.
And so you had lived there 4 years as of November 2015, and the Phillips had lived there that whole time. You don't know what kind of car Pam Phillips drove?
I don't know, make and model. It's not, I just know she had a sedan, like a gold tan sedan.
What kind of car did Ed Donzero drive?
He had a white sedan.
You don't know what kind of sedan?
No, I'm not a car guy.
After you got home at 4:15 that afternoon, did you see Ed Donzero's car at home?
Not that I remember.
You heard the Commonwealth witness in regard to your cell phone download testified that at 8:50 p.m. the night of November 18th, you accessed the NOAA, National Oceanic and whatever the two A's, radar site.
Okay.
Did you do that?
I guess I did.
And why did you do that?
Check the weather? I don't know.
And you set the alarm at 11:27 p.m. You set your alarm for 1:10 a.m.
Okay.
What time did you normally set your alarm to get up in the morning?
I don't really remember. I think the sun came up like 6:30, so it's somewhere around there. So we'll walk the dogs and stuff.
So you don't really remember when you would set your alarm to get up?
No.
Okay. Now you have heard the firearms experts and the various detectives testify about all the guns that were taken out of your house on November 20th.
Some of them, yeah.
And you heard that there was 3 .22 caliber, 1 Ruger .22 caliber long rifle pistol with a laser light and a sight on it. You're familiar with that gun.
Yeah.
And the Smith & Wesson .22 caliber long rifle pistol. You're familiar with that gun.
Yeah.
As you said, sometimes you carry that gun or either one of those guns in your truck.
Yeah.
And in addition, the Smith & Wesson .22 caliber rifle.
Mm-hmm. I had a Marlin .22 rifle as well.
Yes, another a Remington 700 30-06 rifle.
That was supposed to be Austin's Christmas present, but yeah.
And you heard the pathologist testify that both Ed Donzereau and Pam Phillips were murdered with .22 caliber bullets.
Yes, I heard it.
Any of which could have been fired in any one of either the 2 .22 caliber pistols that you owned or the .22 caliber Smith & Wesson .22 rifle.
Not my rifles, are pistols, and that's what the experts said.
That the .22 bullets could have been fired in either of those guns.
They weren't.
You heard the firearms experts testify that ballistically they, yes, could have.
That's not what I heard.
You're saying the firearms experts were wrong, that those bullets couldn't have been fired in
No,
your
I heard
gun?
they said they didn't match.
And you heard both firearms, all three, well, actually, Mr. Doyle from the Kentucky State Police Crime Lab and Mr. Reeves, who testified yesterday, both stated that the casing found on the back porch at the Phillips residence, laying under the debris, was definitely fired from your Glock 45 semi-automatic pistol.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Why did you put that?
Judge, it was our ballistics expert testified this morning, and his name is Eric Warren.
Mr. Warren testified that agreed with the Kentucky State Police firearms expert that casing was fired in the Glock, your Glock.
That could have been, yeah.
And your Glock was the only one of your guns found in the safe?
No, I had all my rifles. I had the bunch of rifles in the safe as well.
Well, when the police came to your home on November 20th and took the safe from your house, at that time, are you saying you had all your guns in there?
I had a SKS, 2 AR-15s, a shotgun, the 12-gauge shotgun, and a 10-gauge shotgun, and that Glock, and I believe another pistol in there.
So as of the night, they came on the 20th. They came and took your safe on the 20th.
I wasn't there, but yeah.
What did you say?
I wasn't there when they did that, but yes.
They came and took your safe on the 20th. They stored it in a warehouse until sometime in February when they obtained a search warrant to open it.
Okay.
And in it, the only gun they found was the Glock. Are you saying there were multiple other guns in the safe?
Yes.
When did you put the other guns in the safe?
They were always in the safe.
So as of the night of, or when did you put the Glock in the safe?
I said, I believe it was the night of the 19th.
The 19th.
Yes.
But the other guns had always been in the safe.
Pretty much, unless I was using them. Yeah.
You stated earlier that your lawyer told you to move the Glock into the safe?
Yeah, I think of my lawyer, my private investigator, who used to be a homicide detective. One of them told me to. I can't remember which one.
Told you to move it from your truck. Where was it before you put it in the safe?
In my truck.
Told you that your lawyer told you to move it from your truck to the safe.
Yep.
Now, you knew that Calvin Phillips was going to testify at your court-martial trial.
Yes.
And that's why you had your investigators go interview him.
Yeah, it's part of the reason, yeah.
And your effort was, you wanted to try to discredit Calvin Phillips' testimony, didn't you?
No, I actually needed to use Calvin Phillips' testimony.
The reason you subpoenaed him was to prove that he had inconsistent statements. Isn't that true? Isn't that what you were going to try to do?
There were inconsistent statements, yes.
That's what you want to try to do?
No.
To Calvin Phillips' testimony.
We wanted to know what he knew and what he could testify to.
But the reason you subpoenaed him was to show that he had made inconsistent statements about how the laptop was found, the classified information was found.
I don't know what the lawyers put down in the subpoena, but that was part of it, yeah.
Because you wanted to discredit Calvin Phillips' testimony, didn't you?
No, I just said I needed his testimony.
You didn't want Calvin Phillips to testify, did you?
No, we needed Calvin.
Without being, you wanted...
Judge, we would object he's not being allowed to answer the questions.
Overruled.
You wanted to discredit Calvin Phillips in your court-martial trial, didn't you?
Why would I want to discredit him when I needed his testimony?
Okay. I'm handing you, it's actually marked Defendant's Exhibit 1A, and the list of witnesses that the defense subpoenaed for your court-martial, lettered instead of numbered. So letter I is listed Calvin Phillips. And after each witness name is the purpose for the witness being subpoenaed, the purpose submitted. Would you read what the purpose was for the defense subpoena, Calvin Phillips, for your court-martial trial?
Provides inconsistent statements regarding how classified material was discovered, which cast doubt on the trustworthiness of the government's theory that the accused mishandled classified information. In his initial statement, he stated that he found the disc in the accused garage while he was helping Joan Harmon move prior to the EPO hearing. When interviewed by the defense team, he said the discs were lying around in the accused library. Additionally, Mr. Phillips has a clear motive to fabricate. Mr. Phillips was one of the instigators of this investigation.
Mr. Phillips was one of the instigators of this investigation and this is the defense theory, provided inconsistent statements and was motivated what?
Motive to fabricate.
Motive to fabricate.
Yeah.
So.
This is by Bill Summers and Tucker Richardson.
And those were your attorneys for the court-martial?
Yes.
So the attempt or the defense request to subpoena Calvin Phillips for the defense case was to try to discredit him by showing or alleging that he made inconsistent statements.
He and Jones both had statements that didn't match at all. It's the time and place.
So wasn't that you thought he would be favorable to you? The effort was to discredit him.
That's what the attorneys have put down there, but we also had the private investigator interviews.
And in fact, that is behind the effort to discredit him, was to send private investigators to attempt to interview him and obtain inconsistent statements.
They did interview him, yes.
Now, where was Joan Harmon living on November 2015?
I have no idea. We've been separated for years.
Had you been, throughout the court-martial proceedings, she obviously was instrumental in that whole investigation. You did not have, or weren't notified, didn't know where she was living?
No.
On the morning of November 19th, you logged into your computer at about 9:34 that morning as you heard the analyst last week testify about the computer logins. So at 9:34 you logged in.
I don't remember, but if that's what it shows, I guess that's right.
And you were only on there for a little over an hour because you logged out at 10:40 something, 10:45 or you heard him testify.
Yeah, whatever it was, yeah.
Where did you go after you logged out?
On the 19th, I think I stayed at the office for a while, and then I had to go get Emma later. I remember that.
You stayed at the office, but you logged out at the computer.
Yeah, like I said, I only use it for email.
And you went to get Emma at much later in the afternoon, didn't you?
Yeah.
So what were you doing between 10:40 and what did she have to be at horseback riding at 4 o'clock?
Yeah, I can't tell you. It's been years. It was like 5, 6 years ago.
That's all the questions I have.
No further questions.
Very well. Step down. Thank you.
Judge, that's the case for the defense.
Very well. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've been searching for a room where we could have some consultation among the lawyers and with the court, and apparently this is the only room adequately equipped for that purpose. Both other local judges are using their courtrooms. So that means we're going to take a recess at this time for the evening. And I ask that you all be back in place at 9 o'clock in the morning. Please remember the court's usual admonition. Don't discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else, or allow it to be discussed in your presence, and don't form or express any opinion about the case until you are deliberating with your fellow jurors who are assigned that task. Now, the Commonwealth has rested, the defense has rested, and that means we will now move into the next phase of your trial experience, which is reading you your jury instructions, and then you will listen to the closing arguments of counsel. That will be what we do in the morning. So we're almost done, and the hard part for you is coming up. And please don't worry or fret about it tonight. Just relax, enjoy your evening, and you'll have plenty to think about tomorrow as far as this case is concerned. And we will try to be as expeditious as possible in making sure there aren't any delays in the continuing phases of the trial that need to be completed. Let me see, I think that's all I needed to tell you. When you arrive in the morning, just do what you customarily do and assemble in the hallway, and the bailiff will come and get you per usual. So, with that all said, thank you for your extremely close attention to this case to date. There's a little more listening that's got to be done. But after that, then one of you will be excused and the remaining 12 will begin deliberating on a verdict. So we'll see you in the morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much. If everyone would please allow the jury to exit the courtroom. All right, counsel, I'm going to take a 10-minute